I am Shantae, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Next Level Conversations, presented by the Win-Win Women Network and Fight Girl Productions. Our mission is to provide you with empowering conversations that uplift, inspire, and encourage you on your path forward. I hope that this episode will be a source of information and inspiration, helping you gain new insights, overcome past traumas, and transform your life. Let's get into it. Today, we're diving into the power of decluttering and resetting your space to create room for abundance. Our surroundings have a profound impact on our mindset and our energy. When we create physical space, we also create mental and emotional space for growth, creativity, and abundance. I'm excited to have Angie Aranda, an expert in decluttering, here tonight to share tips on how to reset our environment and make room for abundance in our lives. Angie is a decluttering specialist, professional organizer, and the owner of We're Simply Organized, LLC. She helps her clients create peaceful, functional, and easy to maintain homes by providing hands-on decluttering and organizing services. After successfully navigating the corporate world, she made the bold decision to step away and fully dedicate herself to helping busy moms reclaim their homes. With a personalized touch, Angie creates practical, easy to maintain decluttering and organizing systems tailored to each client's unique organizing style, bringing peace, order, and functionality back into their spaces. Good evening, good evening, good evening. I am here with Angie, and we are going to be having an awesome conversation on tonight. Angie, will you tell our audience just a little bit more about yourself and a little bit more about your background? I know you have your company, We're Simply Organized, LLC, but you have a corporate background ahead of that. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about that and then how you got into helping folks declutter their life?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me here. I'm so excited. I have actually 24 years of corporate leadership experience and other areas that I worked in throughout that space, but it has prepared me for so many aspects of my current journey. During that time, I was always looking to clear out the storage, units and inventory and clean out or organize supply closets, and it just was a natural thing for me to do. So when I started doing that in my home and posting about it and sharing that, just everyday things that I would do, my friends and family started asking for me to do that in their homes, and that's how it evolved, and so here we are.
Well, I want to talk about it because what people do not understand is how important it is because everything is physical, spiritual. You have an internal man, you have an external man, and people do not understand the importance of your environment and how refreshing life can be when you declutter just the space around you and reset your space, and how your environment ties to your emotions and your overall well-being. So I want to talk about that, and because a lot of people may be like, okay, we're not just talking about uncluttering our house. We're talking about uncluttering our life and completely resetting our life. And there's a whole lot that goes with this. It's not just one thing. So I want to pick your brain as an expert to talk about the physical and the emotional and even the spiritual benefits and danger even that comes with clutter. Can you first kind of tell us a little bit about what is really classified as clutter?
So anything that does not serve you, that anything you don't need, that you don't want, or that you don't use. If you find anything in those categories, you'll find clutter. And it may not necessarily be something that is not useful to someone else. It's just not useful to you.
Oh, I like that. That's really good. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. It may not be useful to someone else. It may be useful to someone else, but it just may not be useful any longer to
Right,
you.
right.
And we have a habit of gathering a lot of things.
Yes.
Not just physical things, but emotions and
Yes.
people. You can declutter your
Oh,
life with
yes,
people.
yes.
So how do you help clients walk through or identify the quote unquote clutter?
Well, when I'm working with a client, we're actually talking about physical clutter. As we're working through our session, things might come out as far as emotional and internal clutter that they might have that is linking them to the stuff, to the tangible things, right, to the material things. Whether it could be a sentimental item, guilty clutter, we call it clutter, like sentimental clutter, guilty clutter, emotional clutter, even identity clutter, and I can get into some
Oh,
of
yes,
those.
girl. Tell me a little bit about, come on, let's break them all down.
Okay, so let's say identity clutter. I worked with some individuals that are public speakers or realtors, or they have some kind of presence either on stage or in the public eye. And so part of what they do is they shop a lot. They buy a lot of outfits. They have, they present themselves in a way that they want to not wear the same thing again, right?
Yes.
And so they might have a very full closet, but nothing to wear. And that becomes their identity, is they cannot get rid, or they find it hard to get rid of those things because deep down they're getting rid of who they are and a part of who they are.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's just, people with out in the public. I think that's
Right.
it. Oh, Lord have mercy. You just kind of hit me just a little bit there for just just a little bit.
And it could be for anything. Let's say you're, I don't know, a
know.
Dallas Cowboy fan, and people know that, and they're gifting you mugs and cups and calendars and all kinds of things. That's part of your identity, so that there could be identity clutter there. Even though you no longer want those things or don't want to be gifted those things, that's part of who people think you are and what you want. So
Oh,
you start
wow.
collecting things like that.
Wow. Wow. Oh, wow. Okay, so give me another one. What?
So there was a client I had that had been married for about 18 years, and I went to help declutter her house, and she had a brand new set of casserole dishes still in a box. And when I asked her about this, she says, those have been there for years. When we got married, my mother-in-law gave those to me. I hate them. I don't like them, but I can't get rid of them because my husband, and I don't want him to get offended. And, she comes over maybe once every 2 years, and I don't want her to not see them. And, so there was that kind of thing. And she was feeling very guilty about getting rid of it. And so that became clutter. So when I worked with her and her husband together, he says, I don't care. You can get rid of them if you want. And she says, well, I just feel really bad about it. And he says, she got those free at a casino. She just didn't want them, so she gave them to us. It was just something that they hadn't discussed before. And she was carrying this load because she thought it was going to hurt her feelings or his feelings. So, just talking through those things is sometimes, for 18 years, she was carrying these things around through several moves.
Wow. And that's so, so interesting. Let's back up just a little bit. Can you tell me how does our environment affects our mindset? Because we're going to walk into these clutters, just like what you were just talking about the client with her husband, and I ain't gonna say me, but I'm gonna say celebrities who have these identity issues. How does our overall environment, even our closet, our just seeing it look right there, how does that impact our overall environment? How does that impact our mindset?
Well, let me ask you a question. When you walk into a hotel room,
Okay,
and you open that door and you walk into the room, what do you feel?
well, it all depends on the
Most
hotel.
of the time. Let's say it's a good one. Let's say it's a good one.
If it's a good hotel, I feel I feel kind of lavished.
Yes.
I feel good.
You feel good. You
I
feel
do.
peaceful. You're just
Yes.
ready to plop on the bed, right? Or just
Yes.
enjoy your time and
And
no cares in the
excited.
world, right?
Yeah.
And so that's how an example of how a positive environment can influence you and at least give you a moment of clarity. And now you can think, okay, I'm going to place this here, I'm going to set this here, or whatever you're there to do. You start to get ready and prepare for the events or the vacation. Same thing when you walk into an environment that is very cluttered, that maybe is a little bit dirty or untidy, or just feels a little bit chaotic. You walk in and you start to feel like, can I sit here? I don't know if, I don't know if I can use the restroom here and things like that. Like those kinds of things start to get to go through your mind and you feel uncomfortable. And that's just the reality. And it doesn't mean that we can't be real and live real lives, right? Because we all make messes, and even if
Yes.
we're tidy and organized, we have real life, and there's days we have stuff everywhere. But you lose creativity, you lose the ability to think, to be at peace, to rest, and just feel comfortable in your own homes. Sometimes we just lose the love of our home because
It's just too cluttered.
there's too much. We're overstimulated already out during the day, and we come home to more over visual stimulation. And so that's a lot.
And one of the things that I've noticed about myself is that when it's too much clutter or there's too much stuff around, it becomes hard for me to focus.
Right.
It becomes hard for me to have creativity. It becomes hard for me to sometimes even to get that connection back with God because there's too much stuff. And not just physical stuff, but sometimes there can be too like we were talking earlier about being busy. And sometimes you can have so much stuff on your plate that your life has been cluttered in the places that you
Right.
should be showing up in, you can't show up in because it's too much clutter.
Right.
Have you experienced that? And
Yes. I've experienced that even in church. When I wanted to volunteer, be asked to volunteer, or I would want to volunteer in certain things. And now I'm, going to church on Sunday, and then you're there on Monday for something, and you're there on Wednesday, and now you're there on Thursday. And you might be volunteering different things or offering your assistance in something, and you can burn out that way too,
Yeah.
and not make time for family or for other things that you want to do. And so it's really good to place priority and to learn how to say, no, I'm letting that go, maybe for a season, but to allow some of that decluttering of the mind, because now you just have so much in there that you're not really present.
And you can and it's so true because you can do it with everything, even
Right.
work.
Yes.
You become just so bogged down with thoughts and emotions and just so many things. I know. I remember you talking one time, or maybe it was something that I saw you write or something. What does the Bible say about clutter?
So 1 Corinthians 14:33 says, God is not a God of chaos,
Oh yeah.
and things should be done in an orderly way. He calls for that. There's scriptures about there's a time to to bring in and a time to let go.
Yeah, a time to sow, a time to
Yes.
reap, a time ecclesiastic,
Yes.
a time to be born. Okay.
And he wants us to be at peace as well in our homes. And why are we not treating our homes as a sanctuary as well? We know our bodies are the temple, right? But we live in a home that our bodies are in, and that our bodies, that's where our home is. This is where we live. And so why wouldn't we want to create a peaceful environment?
But we all are gathering. We always are getting something,
Yes.
and we always are. Or it's the same old story. Even if you quote unquote don't have use for it right now, I know something that I'm gonna do with that.
Yes.
You know what I'm
One day
saying?
I'll
One
need it.
day, I'm not gonna let it go right now because I'm gonna
Right.
use it soon.
Right.
Or as you know, you have a piece of clothing that becomes so sentimental, or an outfit that you knew. I mean, when you were 20, this you rocked the world with this, and one of these days you are going to get back into it. It becomes and stuff just starts to pile up, and you don't really recognize the clutter. How does somebody even go about identifying that I'm in a space of clutter? I have too much going on.
Right. It's easier to start with non-sentimental things. So, for example, a junk drawer. Can you get rid of the extra plastic straws?
Oh no, those junk drawers are
Right.
important. I don't know what you're
Or
talking
receipts
about.
or things like that that are not necessarily attached to a sentiment. You know what I mean? Easy things, actual trash, you know, when you're starting to declutter, like real trash, like receipts, um, cups that might be around, or just bags, you know, just anything
Mm,
that's not
the
useful.
bag that you put the bags
Yes,
in when you go
yes.
to the store.
Or if you go to vendor fairs and they give you free little knickknacks, those, you know, the thing that goes on the back of your phone that has the logo, maybe you don't necessarily want that, but you still have it in the drawer, you know? Those kinds of things that are obviously not hard connections, those are what you can get rid of.
Well, it becomes kind of challenging. It
Yeah,
becomes kind of
yeah,
challenging
it
with
sure
it.
does. Yeah. But you know, you can even, for example, if you sit at your desk
Uh-huh.
and it's very cluttered, you can't even start working.
Oh, that is true. That is so
So
true.
you're like, let me clean my desk first. You know, you start to you start to tidy up, and then once you tidy up, then you start creating and you're able to work. But
Girl,
it does link to that.
if you could see my office right now, you just be like, "Shantae, we got to declutter you." Not too long ago, I was um I was kind of in a space, and I really didn't realize it immediately, but I was in a space, and I was trying to get myself back on just even ground. And the first thing that I did when I finally came up out of the haze of just the overwhelm, I looked around my house, and I was like, it's just too much stuff in here. And I began to just clean.
Mhm.
And the more I cleaned the house, the lighter
Mhm.
I became mentally, physically, and emotionally. It was almost like a weight just completely came off simply because I started to put everything in place.
You were intentional.
Yeah. It really, I mean, it really shifted, it really shifted my life.
Mhm.
What I want to do, one of the things that I want to talk about tonight is how I want to talk about abundance, and how putting things in their proper place and in their space creates more space for more. You
Yes.
understand what I'm
Yes.
saying?
Yes.
So kind of talk to me, just kind of give me your own definition of abundance.
Abundance is not to me about material things.
Hmm.
It's about the time we spend. It's about experiences. It's about being fulfilled,
Hmm.
and really knowing that, am I doing what I'm called to do? Am I fulfilling my purpose? And sometimes we don't know that, and we are in a journey, and we may never reach
Hmm.
that, you know, what we think it might be. But the journey of it, and the process, and the relationships that
Hmm.
you build, and the time that you spend, those to me are
Uh, I, I
abundant.
I like that definition. I agree with that. Do you think this is just based on your own personal, just your own personal journey? Do you think that you find yourself receiving more when you let go of more, when you let go of stuff, or how does that look in your life?
Well, I think for all of us, it depends what we value. To me, I value time, and I value my relationships
Mm-hmm.
that are important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I recently made a decision to leave my corporate job and focus, thank
Congratulations.
you, It's been about a year, and focus full time in my business. And what that allowed me to do is work less hours, but
Mm-hmm.
still maintain what I was able to do in a way that our family is still doing well,
Uh-huh.
and I'm helping people create spaces that they love in their home. And because I value time, I work less hours in the sense,
Mm.
compared to what I used to do, and that's
Yes.
abundant to me.
Yes, I like that. I like that. How did you start to prioritize what were the things that you would keep and how you would move and create this space to make this space for more time? One of my before you say that, one of the three words that I really love, I had to count them. Three words that I really love is create your space. I constantly, I say that to myself all the time because I think for everything in your life that you want to do, that you want to be intentional for, you have to be intentional about creating
Yes.
space. And one of the things God tells me all the time is you create space for everything. And so I need you to be intentional with your space, be intentional with your time, be intentional about where you place where you place others, da 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 da. And
Right.
so it takes a lot of forethought and planning on my part. So creating space is very important to me, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that tonight. But how did you go about identifying and creating and letting go and moving because you wanted to make this time for what it was that you wanted and
Mhm.
what represented abundance in your life.
So when I first started decluttering a few years ago, I started asking myself, instead of the question, have I used this in a year? Those kinds of questions you normally think of when it comes to decluttering.
Mm-hmm.
I started asking myself, can I live without this? And it
Mm.
changed my focus because I would sit there and say, can I live without this? Well, maybe I can, but I use it or I need it. You know what I mean? So
Uh-huh.
you start to ask the questions in a different way. But if it's, I would have rows and rows of books. I know that realistically, I'm the kind of person, if I read a book, I will read it once. I will probably never read it again. And so do I need to keep it? And so I chose to let go of a lot of books that I knew the real me was not going to read again. The
Mm.
fantasy me wanted to read them again. The
Oh.
fantasy me was going to read them again, but the real me was never going to read them again. And if I chose to read it again, I could probably go to the library or
Or
go
go to
find
half
it
price
somewhere else.
books.
That's right.
I really like that.
But it was more expensive for me to take up shelf space than to go buy a brand new book if I needed to, or go to the library if I needed to.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a really good point. I really like that the real you versus the fantasy you,
Yes.
girl, because that gets us in a
Yes.
whole lot of trouble.
Yes.
How did you come up with that?
With scrapbooking. Scrapbooking, when my kids were little, I created scrapbooks and I had a lot more time, and I was in a different space.
Uh-huh.
And I had a lot of time to scrapbook, and in my mind, if I'm a good mom, I'm going to keep a scrapbook for my kids and have it perfect, and they were just going to be very crafty. And I had so many crafting supplies, so many scrapbooking supplies. And as my career advanced and we moved and my life was evolving and they were getting busy and the kids were getting older, I no longer had time to scrapbook.
Mm.
And so looking at my crafting supplies, I almost felt like they were mocking me. They were telling me every time, you're a bad mom because you're not scrapbooking. That's how I would
Wow.
feel, that they were just looking at me saying, look at you. You think you're so busy. You can't do this. Your kids are not going to have their scrapbooks when they're older and whatnot. And so I had to get rid of it because I said the fantasy me is still a scrapbooker. The real me is not going to scrapbook again. And I don't want to be mocked by this scrapbooking material. And as soon as I let them go, I completely forgot about scrapbooking, and it created that clear space. It created that mental unblock. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I love that.
Yes.
I love that. And can you kind of describe to somebody who is just now, I mean, and they're in this space, they don't even realize, can you kind of describe what a mental block from clutter looks like?
Well, you talked earlier about maybe closet, clothing that you want to get into that you can't get into. And maybe it's been years that you've been able to feel amazing in it. But having those things in the closet is not helping to, I mean, you have to be really intentional with your goals and your
Yeah.
activity and, let's put the time
That's
in,
the
right?
real truth. Yeah.
So a small percentage of people may actually fit into those clothes. I knew it wasn't happening for
That was
me.
fantasy you.
That was fantasy me. This little dress was mocking me too. So,
I just really love that.
yes.
You know what I've never really thought about that when actually now that I'm sitting here, because this stuff it does sit. You know you're not doing it,
Right. And it creates that blockage.
and it creates guilt. And
Yes.
oh man, that is
All the negative feelings when you look at that item. But if you remove it, even if you just put it away in a bin, if you're not completely sure, just get it out of your sight.
oh
And it's come back to it later and say, I feel really good not looking at that, it just,
that is man, Angie, that is really good.
yeah.
I like that. I like that a whole lot. We're gonna shift gears here in just a minute. We're gonna take a quick break, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna shift gears, because one of the things that I want to talk about is helping people let go of guilt of letting stuff go,
Yeah.
and some things that they can do to doing that. But at the same time, I also want to take this opportunity to open up our conversation to our audience. You don't mind if our audience asks you a few
No,
questions, do
not at
you?
all.
So we can get some questions going. But we're going to start that right after this quick break.
Hi there, I'm Liz Gabriel, owner of Liz Gabriel Interiors LLC, a residential interior design firm in McKinney, Texas that focuses on spaces that are very person-driven, personality-driven. We create novel, intuitive, and authentic spaces. You can check out my work at lizgabrielinteriors.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Liz Gabriel Interiors. I also have a lifestyle brand as an advocate for creatives who experience some mental health symptoms and need help overcoming that in living a creative lifestyle. You can follow that at Liz Gabriel Lifestyle is my handle. I am a singer-songwriter, and you can find my music on any streaming platform under Liz Gabriel Artist. And I think that's it.
So cute. You're so adorable. But we're talking about decluttering our life and resetting our space. And when we went to a break, we were talking about what I have just completely just fallen in love with, the real you and the fantasy you, and how letting go of stuff, the fantasy you tends to mock you. And there's a lot of stuff in our life that becomes hard to let go of. We have such emotional attachments to things. We have spiritual attachments. We have um, uh, societal attachments. There are so many. I mean, like one in religious attachments. Just so many things. How do you help? Or let's talk about the guilt that comes from releasing things, and how you help your clients move past the guilt.
When I start working with a client, we always start with what's easy for them. So, for example, if the pantry is easy because there's no real attachment to things in there, then the decluttering muscle will start to work in there. And we start with expired items, things that we don't use anymore. So, that's a really easy way to start building that decluttering muscle because you learn to make decisions on a little bit quicker. So
Okay.
once we start with unemotional areas in your home, then once we start moving to things like um, things that were passed down or dishes that were the grandmother's or certain things like that, then those decisions are a little bit harder to make. But by then they've had some practice with everything else. So it almost starts to just happen naturally, and it hasn't really been a problem yet with anyone that's like, no, no, I do have some that are like, no, I'm not ready to let that go, and that's okay. We're not there to make anyone, it's not a journey in suffering, you know what I mean?
Ah.
It's not supposed to be something that you are going to lose sleep over, or if that's the case, we're not getting rid of it. Or we will shift it to another space. But in the meantime, we're getting rid of all the other things, and that will create space for those things. So it's a small, it takes a while. It took me a year to really let things go in my house, um, because I only had 15 minutes a day or so when I started. But it's the mind shift, and so it shouldn't be rushed.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just listening to you talk about how you physically help clients, it's really you because you can really use that with emotional things that come up in your life. You just said something, you said it's not supposed to cause pain. And maybe we have to put this off to the side right here, but then we'll move something else.
Right.
And the second you said that, I just kind of just begin to see some emotional things that people have a hard time letting go of. When you're ready for change, but this particular emotion, this particular thing, maybe it's a hurt or something, it's causing me too much pain. So right now I can't let this one go,
Right.
but I can start letting go of other things.
Yes. Yes. And if there is an emotional or even traumatic attachment to um, an item, not so much because that item was the cause, but maybe who gave you the item, or what it reminds you of, or where you were when when you received it or whatnot. Those kinds of things can cause pain, and so we avoid that for a time, and then we'll get into it, right? We get into it. I had a client that had a big bin of journals that she had since she was a young teenager. And as soon as we opened the box, she says, "Oh, close that. I'm not ready for that. There's a lot of pain in there." And I said, "Okay, we're gonna set this aside." So we set it aside. We did the rest of her garage. We finished. She started working on her decluttering muscle. And when we came back to them, I said, "Let's talk about this. Tell me about this." And she started crying. She says, "There's a lot of pain here." It was written in another language, so I don't know. When I opened them, I couldn't tell. I mean, obviously I wasn't reading, but it's like I couldn't tell. So this was something that was very personal to her. And I started asking her about it, and she says, "I'm not ready. I'm not ready." Anyway, long story short, she asked me once, we were about an hour sitting in her garage floor talking through this. She was crying about it. She says, "Can you just I need to get rid of this. Can you tear them up for me?" And I said,
Oh,
"No, I'm
wow.
not." I said, "You will tear the first page." And she sat there, and it took her about 15 minutes in her tears. And she finally was able to tear out a page. And after that, she just went at it. And then I helped her.
Oh,
And so we're sitting in this
man.
garage tearing up journals, and we had everything shredded. And that night, she says, "My house feels so peaceful." She says, I can't believe it. Everything feels so light in here.
Oh, man.
And it wasn't even about everything else that we did, because we only worked in the garage that day. I did her whole house, by the way, after that. But she just working on that emotional aspect, and that what was holding her back for whatever traumatic experience she had caused a release in the rest of her house.
Oh, wow. That is that is the perfect example of releasing and resetting so that you can have more. Wow.
Yes.
I don't even know if we really, as individuals, if we pay enough attention to the fact that sometimes it could be the emotional attachment to things that are keeping us from our peace.
Yes. Yep.
That is beautiful. girl, I probably would have been crying.
Yes, I was crying with her. We had a whole session. It was amazing.
I love that.
Yes.
That just kind of gave me chills.
Yes.
You'll get to experience that with people
Yes.
and it's almost like coming up from drowning and just being reborn and being refreshed and being renewed. It's happened to me like so many times. That is beautiful. Okay, so you keep talking about this declutter muscle. Talk to me about that.
It's practice, you know. It's like when you start to work out, it hurts at first. It's uncomfortable. You maybe don't want to get up and do it, or you experience a little bit of pain because your muscles aren't used to it. And so once you start working that out and going after it, it becomes easier, and you almost do it without thinking. And that's where I'm at, for example. I'm constantly just tossing things. I don't think about it. And that's what I teach my clients to do is immediate decisions. Let's just make a decision. We put it away. We don't just set it down.
Yeah, well,
Right?
my mama used to say that all the time. I have been accused by quite a few people in my life of not caring enough, because I'll get some stuff and I'll just give it away, or I'll get rid of it because I'm like, I don't
You're not
really,
attached to it.
And I've been accused. So a few people have accused me of being heartless or not caring and stuff. And it's not that I'm not. It's just I am just not attached. It just creates no attachment for me, and I just don't want it sitting around. I don't want it. How do you balance that? Because sometimes it makes people get into their feelings a little bit because they come looking for something that they gave me and I've regifted it somewhere. I have that kind of bad.
Yeah.
Pray for me.
You know, that is something that a conversation can be healthy, and saying, I appreciate the gift. I love that you thought of me this way. I'm really not using this. Would you like it back, or would you mind if I pass it on to someone? Because then you've communicated. I mean, if they get upset, and maybe it's just me not thinking, like, I don't really care what other people think, and not in a non-caring way, okay? Because
No,
I do have compassion for people, and I care about people, and I care about my but it's more like I can't give that enough value because it's my peace. I have to protect my peace.
I like that. I really do. I like that. And part of clearing your space and reset, because we're going to talk about resetting our environment right here in just a minute. But and the more I keep listening to you talk, it's so much more. It's so much about you and what keeps your mind clear,
Right.
what keeps your heart light, and what keeps your world revolving in a good and healthy way.
Right. And when I say I don't care what people think, it's not, again, going back to that, it's not about not valuing the friendship.
I understand.
But it's about that communication to say, for example, my best friend knows that for Christmas, birthdays, whatever it is, we will give each other specifics, because she knows very well that I don't want things that are just going to pile up. So she asked me, what do you want? And I will make a list of little things, nothing really big. And what I get is exactly what I wanted or what I needed. And it's important. But also when you're gifting someone something, it's really great to gift experiences. Maybe a membership to a car wash, or maybe a membership or a subscription to something, if you know that they have a business, maybe something that they can use for their business that is not a tangible item. Or if they have kids, membership to the zoo or a playground, or things like that will
doesn't
create,
take up space
Right.
everywhere. I like that, and I like what you called it. Gift them an experience,
Yes.
not gift them a thing.
Right.
Because it's constantly getting things.
Yeah.
And things tend to cause us issues.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to take a few questions. We're going to take a few questions for our audience. What are some tips for resetting and reorganizing your space to create a fresh, inviting space?
So a reset is very important to do daily.
Okay.
Okay, we see all the videos of the Sunday reset. No, man, we got to do a daily reset. you know, because, for example, and creating habits that are going to think of the future you. Okay. So I'll give you an example. The future me, when I wake up in the morning, that's the future me. I want to walk into a kitchen that has no dishes in the sink, and that my coffee is prepped and ready to go, so I can just push the button or it turns on by itself, right? That's the future me. So that means that prior to, I need to set those things up so that I can create an easier flow in my day. Emptying out the dishwasher while my coffee is brewing, for example, it takes 3 minutes, 5 minutes, right? So you're creating those habits and that you can start to do so that you don't create additional, not chaos, but just extra steps later. So even 5-minute makeovers. If you have a family of 4, then set a timer for 5 minutes. And everyone does a tidy for 5 minutes. When that timer stops, you go on about your day, and you just had a 20-minute tidying session. Each one did 5 minutes, so that's 4 times 5, 20 minutes. So someone's throwing the trash, someone's, picking up blankets or whatnot. Just find something, and everyone should have something to do for 5 minutes. Or if their kids are small, you can play a song. When the song is over, then they're done.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. And you're saying it's important for us to reset our day every single day. I'm going to tell you something that I started here. Don't judge me. That I started here in this year. When I was younger, my mom used to make us, she was adamant about making that bed, okay? And I mean, we would get in trouble if we did not make our bed, and we couldn't leave her house. She would literally take us off the bus stop and bring us back to the house to make our bed before there was no leaving her house without making the bed. And so as I got older, I started rebelling.
Right.
Quite a bit. I'm like, grown. And so for a very long time, I wasn't making my bed in the mornings, and then there was a period of time where I would start, and then I would stop, and I would start, and I would stop. But God has been dealing with me, and so I said, you know what? One habit that I really want to create now is I want to make my bed, because now it's a reset.
Yes.
It's like the day, and I didn't get that then, but it's like the day has I'm not strolling into the same day when I make that bed, and when I come back, I'm pulling my sheets and stuff back. So one of the things that I did was I put a note. There's a note on my front door that every day before I walk out the door, I look at that note, and it's a smiley. It says, "Did you make your bed today?"
I love it. I love it.
But that is how I reset my environment. It's something simple, but we can do those simple things to help us reset. And it's made a huge difference. I didn't appreciate my mama for that back then, but I appreciate it now.
Yeah.
I didn't understand the importance of it. How important is the use of color and lighting and stuff as far as helping your home be creating the space that you want and getting that peace and resetting your mind?
Well, I've always been one to open blinds, or I don't like to have them closed. I don't like to feel dark and closed in. So if you have windows and you open them, if you have the ability to open them, letting that light in is great. I happen to live in a house where the front of my house, there's no windows to my front. There's only one window, and it's at the side of my garage, so I only see a side of the street. And I didn't realize when we were looking at it until I started move in all my furniture, and I said, there's no windows here to the front. So I have windows all in my backside, but those are constantly open.
Really?
To let that light in, but also turning the lights on and that kind of thing. And having minimal items helps to not feel so tight. So I might not have all my shelves full of things, or walls are not necessarily full to the max, those kinds of things. Just starting with simplicity and just having what you love and what you use really creates additional light because it's not taking up space.
Ah, yes. Yeah, and maybe I'm further along in life than I thought I was. When I started this journey, you call it your the real you and the fantasy. I call me the Old Testament me and the New Testament me.
Okay.
So the Old Testament me I've always lived in a place with windows and everything, but I never opened my blind. So my house was always, and I didn't like dark, but I never allowed extra light in. New Testament me, as I've been on this journey, and God has been just been working on me and all this different type of stuff. Now I cannot go a single day, not a single day. The moment I wake up, I open up all the blinds.
Yes.
In my house, I open them all up, and it does something. It just, I mean, having that light come in, it just completely resets, and it changes something about me and about my life and about my day. So I never even feel down.
Right. My great grandma used to say, to open all the windows and the curtains so that you can let the grace of God come in. And she said it in Spanish, so it sounded a little bit different. But
say it in Spanish for me.
Abre las ventanas para que entre la gloria de Dios. Que
Yeah,
entre la gloria de Dios. So, let the glory of God shine in. And so I remember that since I was little, and
because it does, that's really what it feels like.
Yes.
Especially when that sun hits you at a certain angle. And I've never had plants. I have never had plants. I hated plants coming up because my mama loved plants coming up, okay? And she just loved them. They were all over the place. But here recently, a few years ago, I decided to get me some plants. And I have plants now. And my plants, they all just migrate to the light. They just love it. But it has changed the space.
You're bringing in life.
I know.
With the plants and that light is creating life, and those plants are alive, so, and that creates life in you too.
But even to have that, I had to let go of some things, and one of the things that I let go of so that I could have that space and so that I can spend time in that light, I got rid of my television.
Oh, yeah.
So I had to release something so that I can receive something, and I absolutely love it.
Yes, you have to fill that void with something that's going to fulfill you. Right? So even if you are releasing items that are taking up space, for example, something as simple as, why do we all have 3 can openers? Like, there's obviously one that doesn't work, and we know the one that doesn't work, so we don't go for that one, but it's still there. Why? I see this in most of my clients, and so when we talk through it, they laugh too. They're like,
because every time you go to the store, they're so cheap. So you just, I need a new can opener. Let me grab one.
But so if you think of the can opener, it's not just the can opener that we have duplicates of. Now we have spatulas, and we have, all these other extra things that when you really take everything out and sort by category, you start to really see, I don't use this one, I don't use this one, I don't use this one, let's get rid of it. And now you're just simplifying. I'm not saying get rid of everything and only keep one of things. I mean, if that's what you want, that works for you, right? But I'm just saying discarding what is not serving you so that you can allow space for what is.
I was just about to go back to what you said. Is this is this serving me? I like that question, and I like consistently asking that question. Is this thing right here serving me, or is it just taking up space?
Yeah.
I don't do it. I don't ask myself that about the physical things in my house, and I'm gonna clean out my closet this weekend. But I do ask myself about that when when there are thoughts that are sitting in my brain too long, or emotions that I'm holding. I ask myself, is this serving me? And if it's not, I need to release it so that I can make space for the things that are serving me.
Right. And I will tell you that once you start decluttering the physical items, you start thinking differently about those things in your life that are no longer serving you, including relationships, situations that you might be putting yourself in that you are not really, that it isn't bringing any value to you, right? But you start to ask yourself differently. Your circle gets a little bit tighter. You start setting boundaries differently. You start extending grace differently. There's just so much more that starts to get released in here when you start the actual deed of physical decluttering.
When you start working that decluttering muscle.
Yes.
We got to put on our decluttering muscle,
That's right.
people. So as we get ready to wrap up, I know it doesn't feel like we've been talking for a while.
I know, it went by fast.
As we get ready to wrap up, I want to, can you just talk about, and actually I had a question here, can you talk about some small daily practices that can help you maintain a space of abundance?
So simplifying, we talked a little bit about that, but doing daily things, for example, as you brush your teeth, you can wipe down the surface of your countertop. And you're not thinking, how is that abundant? But it's creating a tidier space so that you can now work and get ready and, get yourself together. And when you walk into your restroom, you're not seeing, it's easy sometimes that happens with me as I get ready fast and I leave things out. I let the curling iron cool down so it stays there, those kinds of things, right? But we do the reset, right? But another daily task is you talked about making your bed, you know, emptying dishwashers, getting the coffee ready. So those things that physically take time are just automatically going to create abundance because you're not taking extra time doing those things in the moment when you're rushing or creating, when you need to get through out the door. So same thing like getting your kids' bag ready the night before. Simple things like that. And a lot of parents already do that. You just kind of start doing those things as your kids evolve. But entrepreneurs, it's very hard also to keep our home tidy because
we're always on the go.
Yes,
Yeah.
you're rocking your business and your mind is going. And so we neglect our homes sometimes. And that's really who I love to work with as well, is families and entrepreneurs that are just on the go constantly and, just need some help with that. And so just creating those spaces.
So when you come in and you help them reorganize their space, do you like leave them a list of things like this is something you can do, or let's touch this every day, or stuff like that? How do they keep the space organized?
Well, I organize by style.
Ah.
So there are 4 styles that you really want to focus on. And when I go to someone's home, I can see what they are. Do they like seeing their things out? They're visual, they're visual, or they're not visual. So for example, do you like to have all your things out on the countertop, or do you want clear countertops? If they like clear countertops, I know that I need to organize differently in the hidden spaces. Also, are they a macro organizer or a micro organizer? For example, do you want all the pens in one container, or do you want the red and the blue and the green? So how does your mind work? And I've organized based on how your mind works because that will make it easier for you to maintain.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's a lot. That's a lot going into that.
Yeah.
That is a lot going into that. Can you kind of tell us where, if somebody wants to work with you, how they can connect with you, and different things like that? Can you kind of?
Yeah, so my website is www.we'resimplyorganized.com. My phone number is 915-261-9170, and my email is Angie@we'resimplyorganized.com, as well as my Facebook.
Okay, say your full name say your full name again because
Angie Aranda.
I just love it. I
It's
love the.
actually Angelica Mabel Aranda.
Oh, wait a minute. Say that again.
Angelica Mabel Aranda.
Angelica. Oh, I like
Oh,
that. That is
yeah.
so pretty. That is gorgeous. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much,
You're
Angie, for
welcome. It was
being here
so
and
great.
talking with us. Can you just really, just real quick, just talk to somebody whose life is in a disarray right now and they need to start somewhere? Can you kind of tell them where to start, what to start doing? Just kind of encourage them as they pick up and put something away.
Right. The first thing is to not feel the pressure when you're looking at social media to buy all of the bins. You don't want to buy all the bins, make the aesthetic. The aesthetic comes after. And so it's important to find functionality first, be able to let go of things daily, give yourself grace, don't rush through it, and do something every day. Every day, let go of, even if it's one thing, to help you start working on processing all that. Have a box by your door where you can start setting donations. Make sure you take them and they don't sit in your car for 3 weeks. So you drive around, take them, make a point to take those things out of your home. And you can do this. And if you find that you are needing extra support, I also offer virtual coaching decluttering sessions if you're not in the area, or we can do hands-on. I also have a journal
Oh,
that, yes,
yes.
I have it right here. It's a 30-day decluttering makeover journal. It's available on Amazon. And this gives you 15-minute tasks every day that you can do. And there's some reflections and there's personal experiences of things that I've worked on in my home that can guide you through this.
Oh, yes. And I'm gonna make sure I put the link
Yes.
in the show notes. Angie, thank you so much for joining us on tonight. I appreciate you,
You're
girl. You have given
welcome.
me so much good stuff. So much good stuff. I want to thank our audience for joining us tonight. I hope something has been said on tonight to help you reset your environment so that you can start living a life of great abundance. This is our year to abound, and our goal is to see you go further than you've ever gone before. And Angie has given us some great tips just to start resetting so that we can make room for more. Until next week, I want you to know that I love you and I appreciate you. Go be great.